and welcome to Porto. My name is Andy Newport. I'm joined by Scott McDermott for this latest edition of the Record Rangers podcast. How are you, Scott?
Very well, Andy, very well.
Enjoying Porto.
Happy to be here, yep. Apart from the rain, obviously, just like Glasgow.
we seem to have brought the weather with us to Portugal for Rangers' big Europa League match this week. We've just come back from the press conference, the Porto press conference, to speak to Francesco Farioli. Some interesting things to say. Speaking about, obviously, it's a dead rubber for Rangers, but a big match for Porto. But as a guy who's got his own Rangers links, I think we can hear from now. I think we'll maybe just start with that, and then we'll come back and discuss what we said.
Your name, Francesco, has been linked to Rangers a few times. I just wonder if you've ever come close, and whether in the summer you did speak to the club about becoming their manager before you came to Porto.
Yeah, it's I cannot deny that I had some contacts with the club in the past, and let me say the main one was years ago when Ross Wilson was the sporting director there, and this one was, let's say, the time where probably I was closer to the opportunity. Of course, it's a great club and club of big tradition in the UK and in European competition, so I was very grateful to receive this type of calls. But again, life led me to some other really interesting and big project, and today I think I'm really grateful for the place where I am. I renewed my contract 3 days ago, and I'm really happy to be the coach of FC Porto.
So, Scott, interesting what Francesco Farioli had to say there. Obviously, we're the guys that sort of write a lot of these stories about, potential managerial candidates that are in the running. It's always interesting to hear from guys themselves that have been involved in it. And it seems from what he's saying that he was close a couple of years ago, we believe just before Giovanni Van Bronckhorst given the job, that he was close to a move to Ibrox.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm sure you agree, he spoke very well today, didn't he? I mean, he kind of looked and sounded like a Rangers manager to me. I was really impressed. As you say, really interesting. 5 years ago, it sounds as if it was pretty close before Van Bronckhorst got it. He obviously mentions Ross Wilson there, who was charged with getting the new Rangers manager in. But we know he also talked to them in the summer before Russell Martin get the gig. And as I say, just for listening to him today, it's kind of clear to see why he would appeal to a club like Rangers. He's obviously done well, or he's impressed when he's been at Nice and Ajax. Now he's at Porto, he's got them top of the league. Just saying, a really impressive guy, and interesting that we could have been interviewing him as Rangers manager here.
I mean, it's as much as he sounded like he was intrigued by this prospect, and he certainly respected Rangers, respected the team that he's going to come up against tomorrow night. But one thing he was also very positive on was Danny Rohl, and he reckoned Rangers are very lucky to have a manager has calibre.
He did, and what was clear again was how much detail he's looked at Rangers, and he was able to rhyme off different shapes and systems that Rohl's already used. He's aware, obviously, that they're on an 8-game winning run, and they're coming into this with some momentum very quick. I mean, we were also at the press conference with the Portuguese press, kind of keen to get him on the fact that Rangers have no motivation, there's nothing really to play for in Europe, and whether that's might be an issue for Porto, but he was absolutely adamant that they won't underestimate Rangers at all, irrespective of what team Danny Rohl puts out. And that'll be interesting for us, because Rangers have got a huge game on Sunday against Hibs. That has to be the priority now. Danny Rohl's pretty limited with his kind of squad. He's obviously has to go with the UEFA squad that was picked. I think for the last Lou de Gret's game, we only had 15 fit players. But interesting to see if a couple of young boys get an appearance tomorrow night. Obviously, Rangers will still want to win the game, but I think the priority has to be Sunday. But no, I mean, Farioli certainly won't underestimate them, and he knows exactly how Danny Rohl works. He was very complimentary on the day.
I mean, he did say earlier on, just before the clips we played you there, that he didn't expect Rangers to disrespect the competition by fielding a weakened team. But as you say, with that game against Easter Road, with everything that's at stake domestically, and then obviously the fact that they're now out the running to qualify, do you really see Danny Rohl going with as strong as a team as he can name? Or do you think he's going to give this as an opportunity guy I mean, guys like Antman and Majowski are on it.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's tough, isn't it, to find that balance because Porto are on top of their game.
2 defeats out of 30 this season.
19 league games, they've won 18.
Yeah.
Sitting top of the league. They need to win. They'll talk about their motivation. If they win tonight, they'll almost certainly get into the top 8 in the Europa League and reach they'll go straight through the last 16. So motivation's really high for them. You'd imagine the crowd will be behind them, expecting a good, convincing win. So can Rangers really get into an arena like that with a weakened team and playing kids? I don't think they can, or they might suffer a kind of heavy beating. But as you say, that the flip side of that is the be all and end all for Rangers now is the Scottish Premiership, and Danny Rohl has to protect players. He has to keep his best players fit. So I totally agree. I think there'll be a few fringe players get a game tomorrow night. I mean, he'll be disappointed. Somebody like Bayrami, for instance, can't play because he's not in the European squad. But you would think the likes of Antman, as you say, young Finlay Curtis, surely will get a run at for the start, I would imagine, in this game. Obviously we expect him to eventually move on loan, but could be really useful for Rangers in this particular game. But he's limited. He's not got a lot of options to shuffle his pack.
I mean, when you look at the guys available and the guys that aren't available, I mean, it's just not a game that you want to be risking guys in, because let's be honest, this is a game that really Rangers could do without. I mean, it is a tough one for the manager.
100%. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head the kind of the players on the periphery that could play. I mean, who is there really? I mean,
I'm even thinking defensively. It's probably going to be Fernandez and Djeidi again, because even like Sir John Souttar coming back from having missed a couple of games, we believe it's trained today. Believe it is expected to travel.
You see, would if he's your first pick centre back with Fernandez, which you think he is, you're not going to risk Souttar with the Hibs game coming up if you've got an eye on that. Look, we know the Hibs game. He can obviously call on the new players. Scove Olsen and Chukwuani will come back into his stocks for Hibs, as well as maybe two Romans if he's
trained today.
So he might come into the equation again. But that's a perfect example. Jade McGoma at left back's played nearly every game. This would have been the game that you would have said, look, leave him out, but they've not really got many other options at left back. Midfield with Connor Barron again, but they're kind of toiling for numbers, so it's probably going to need to be Raskin, Diamonde and Asgard. Again, you would think. As I say, I think Curtis would come in, and up front is going to be interesting because obviously Chermiti was ill at the weekend. I'm sure we'll talk about him later. Majowski came in, hasn't set the head on fire. Bojan Majowski, let's be honest. So does he go with him? What's he thinking for Easter Road? And does he want Chermiti back as the first choice? As I say, a really difficult balance in that. But I think Danny Rohl will just want to be getting through tomorrow night's game without any scares, without any major injuries, and hopefully have a full squad to choose for on Sunday.
Now, listen, this game, as we say, Rangers could rather do without it. I'm sure that's not everyone tuning in's been wanting to listen about a build-up to a dead rubber. I think the big talking point of this week has been the transfer front.
What says, for Rangers' point of view, they will want to keep the momentum. It would be, you don't want to win 8 games in a row and then take a really heavy defeat, because even though the game doesn't mean much in terms of qualification, a heavy defeat always kind of dents confidence irrespective of the opposition. So from Rangers' point of view, they will, they want to get a positive result for us just to keep that feel-good factor going.
I was just going to say that I think most people are coming here or tuning in because we want to get an update on where the club are at transfer-wise. Obviously, we're just under a week away from the January deadline. Brings up to speed on where we believe we're at with likes of Chermiti, Danilo, Ryan Nadiri, the German striker from Hansa Rostock.
Yeah.
What's the latest?
It was good that everything happened yesterday. We were travelling around Europe trying to get here. That was really good. No, look, we're led to believe the word coming out for the club is that Rangers have knocked back 2 big bids for 2 of their players, Youssef Chermiti and Djeidi Gassama. The offer from Monaco for Gassama, we believe, was a loan deal but with an obligation to buy for around £10 million, which would be an incredible profit on a player they signed for 2.2 million in the summer. Chermiti, again, this emerged kind of late last night here. The word coming out was that they'd also knocked back a bid a while earlier in the window for Chermiti from Fenerbahce, which we think was around £13 million, and again an incredible profit on a guy who they signed for 8 million and took absolute pelters for paying that fee. I mean, we were joking this morning, if he'd have said before the Old Firm game at Celtic Park Rangers were going to get a bid of 3 million for Chermiti, I think most fans would have probably bit your hand off and just took the loss, took the hit, because he's been poor in terms of his numbers, in terms of goal return. I think he's only got four this season, 4 in the league.
4 in the league, I think. 5 4.
So, but he's obviously he's improved the last few weeks. The 2 firm goals have bought him a bit of time.
I think you saw even at the weekend there that when you take him out of the team, they do miss him, because as much as he isn't what you call a natural goal scorer, I think that's something that an aspect of his game he really has to improve upon. But his physicality, top end of the pitch, his ability to press, his ability to retrieve the balls, win balls back, I think that is, the longer this Danny Rohl era has gone on, has become more a key part of it. And I think Majowski, as you said earlier on, hasn't really set the header alight, has struggled in that front. He's not creating chances for himself or helping the team create chances for him by being a focal, being a presence at the top end of the pitch.
Chermiti, I think that the improvement in Chermiti to me is that he's adapting gradually to Scottish football and knowing what's required. I agree with you. I don't think he's a natural goal scorer. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that gets you 20-25 goals a season. But in certain games, or a lot of games in Scottish football, he can be very useful to you with that physicality, with that hold-up play, bringing others into it, pressurising defenders. That's why he's basically become the first choice striker, even though the goals haven't really come from him. So the fact that they've knocked back, if it's true and they have knocked back this big bid, first of all, it tells that Danny Rohl rates him. Even what fans might have thought at the start of the season, Rohl clearly rates him and sees him as a really useful member of the squad. It also shows Rangers financially, with the backing of the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh, are under no pressure to sell one of their players. And you need to say Chermiti is an asset. Whatever you think of him as a player, they bought him for 8 million. He's a Portuguese under-21 international. Profile's good in terms of his age and his attributes. But it also shows you, while Rangers are going for this title, and now that they're back in the title race, they don't want to lose any of their best players or any of their first pick players.
Do you think perhaps had these bids materialised, especially for Chermiti, earlier in the window, when the club would have more time? We were sitting here, okay, I was told last night, it was certainly at the very least a few days ago, this bid from Turkey came in. Do you think they'd maybe given themselves, if this had been a bid that had materialised just in the early days of the window, and they'd give them that time to go and find somebody? We know how difficult a window January is. Do you think they might have thought about it, especially at that point where he wasn't firing and hadn't had that, that big performance at Parkhead? Do you think that before that they might have thought? I think you're right. I think most fans would have said, even if you take a slight loss on him, you bite your hand off it. To think that you could make a profit, a guy who's been certainly in the very early stages of his time in Glasgow was pilloried.
I think you're right. Look, obviously Kevin Thelwell, when he left the club, there's a bit of kind of structural change there, and Rangers. We don't know behind the scenes just how kind of well equipped they are in terms of this transfer window, in terms of recruitment and stuff like that. So I think what you're getting at there, would they have the time and the resources to go and get a replacement for Chermiti quickly? I think it would be difficult, and that's probably come into their thinking in terms of if they have knocked back this bid. And it's similar with Gassama.
He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he, Gassama? I was just going to come on to that. I mean, there's been times where you think, very early on, the very first 3-4 games under Ross Martin, it really looked like Rangers have got themselves a proper prospect here, but he's tailed off. I think he's obviously been asked to play on the right-hand side, being right-footed. type of player he is. He's not a guy who's going to go to the byline and whip across here. He wants to come and get shots away, and when he's on the wrong side, he's so much more less effective there. Whereas when you get on that left, as you saw at the weekend, we scored against Dundee. If you can get him driving in off the left and whipping those shots at the far post, he is definitely a threat. But it's just a feeling, I think a lot of fans would agree that they've just not seen enough of that.
I feel a wee bit from Andy. I know you're saying he's tailed off. I think that might be a wee bit harsh to me. I think, as his performances of late been as good as they were initially? Probably not, but I feel for him in the sense that I think a few months ago Rangers were in such a bad place. Before Danny Rohl took over, even at the start of kind of Danny Rohl's reign, the Rangers fans, Gassama was the only guy they were looking at. I mean, they were just constantly expecting him to do something because of the start he'd made at the club. And that's tough when any player, especially as you say, when a lot of the times he has been playing out of position. He's had to play wing back a few times as well, remember, which certainly isn't his favoured position. I totally agree with you. His best work has always been in the left-hand side, cutting in on his right foot. That's pretty much where he's got all his goals from. And I genuinely think if once the Rangers squad gets more settled and it gets stronger, with new additions, I think if you've got Gassama constantly as one of your options on the left wing, whether that's with Mikey Moore as the other option or whether another new player comes in, I think you'll see the best of him and you can use him. The other thing is he's had to play him basically every game. There have been times when Danny Rohl would have wanted to take him out and he's not really had that option. I think in the recent cup tie against Dannon, for instance, they made loads of changes, he still started that game. So I think there's been a lot of pressure on him. I think he's still only 22. So I quite like him. I think he can offer Rangers something. He's shown that with some of the goals that he scored already. And again, going back to my point with Chermiti, if this bid has been rejected, which we're led to believe it has, then it shows you how much Rohl rates him. And once again, it shows you Rangers, they will not be forced into selling one of their key players at this juncture in the season when they've managed to get themselves back in the title race.
In terms of the other sort of rumours that have been doing the rounds, certainly I'm led to believe that there's been some interest in Danilo. I think NEC Nijmegen from Holland, obviously Danilo being a former Ajax trainee, played with Feyenoord of course. I think he's got family, his wife's obviously Dutch, so that link might appeal to him. Also some interest from Cyprus, Paphos I believe. I'm led to understand that if he's going to be leaving, it probably won't be Cyprus. I think he would, obviously with the family links to Holland, that would probably be his preferred option. But I don't think he's given up yet on his Rangers career. I think he still believes he can play here, he can fight. Obviously gets his goal at the weekend, took it opportunity really well. Where he's sitting, Danilo, is it time up for him? Has he had his chance and is it time to move on from him?
As harsh as it sounds, I think it probably is time up from at Rangers. And you look at his reaction after the Dundee goal, it didn't strike you as a guy that thought he was going to be at Rangers for the foreseeable future. He looks as if he's third choice, obviously behind Chermiti and Majowski. We know Rangers are looking at other strikers, including Nabiri and maybe others. Talk about potential interest in Masfinisi at Motherwell, for instance. So Danilo might fall further down the pecking order, and we know it was a big signing for Rangers. He's on big money, one of the big earners at Ibrox, and Rangers can't afford to carrying players like that as third or fourth choice striker when they're on that kind of money. So in a perfect world, I think Rangers would look to get Danilo out, whether that's on loan or a permanent. And I think that my gut feeling is that'll probably happen before the end of the window.
Finally, just before we get drenched here by this downpour that's moving in, I think we brought the weather with us from Glasgow. The Djeidi, as you're saying, obviously playing in the German third tier, there was sort of chat early on that a fee in the region of €3 million, £2.6 million had been agreed between the clubs. It looks like that's a little bit less lately now. I think the Germans are holding out for a bit more. Again, it's one of these difficult ones. You've not watched the guy every week. You're looking at YouTube clips. They all seem to make it look like a superstar. Yeah. But I mean, from the very, very scant bits of footage you'll be able to see him, does he look like the kind of figure that makes up the prospect that really entices the Rangers fans?
We talked about this yesterday in the way over. I'm slightly surprised when I look at the profile in Djeidi, that's the type of striker that Rangers are going for. I thought in my head, especially listening to Danny Rohl the other week talking about maybe getting an attacker and who could play across all three forward positions. He doesn't look that type to me. He looks like a proper centre forward again, like a Chermiti or a Majovski. I don't know all his attributes, just watching the clips I've seen him. So I'm slightly surprised that, as I say, that's the type of profile they're looking at. But again, he's a young player, 22. They're kind of plucking him, if you like, for the third tier. They clearly feel he's a guy they could get in for the price tag you kind of mentioned, who they can develop and again maybe sell on. It kind of fits the model in that sense. But in terms of getting him out, for what we're kind of been told, I don't even think it's maybe Rostock might be looking for a bit more money, but I think it's more to do with them trying to get the placement in before the end of the window. And we're speaking to agents and people like that pretty regularly. For everything I'm hearing, the striker market now is really difficult. But for all clubs, it seems to be it's really tough to get the right strikers in at the right price with the right conditions. And I think Rangers are kind of feeling that. They're obviously looking at attackers across the board, but haven't been able to nail one. Now, I think they probably will get somebody in before the window. I think a striker or an attacker is a priority for Danny Rohl. Whether it will be Djeidi or no, we're not sure. It might depend on Hansa Rostock getting someone in. But it's interesting, as I say, just with the profile. I thought they'd maybe go for more of a kind of a live wire, like a Masfinisi, who can go either side as well as going through the middle. So it's interesting to see how it develops.
Well, we'll catch up with you again next week. Once the window shuts, we'll see who's come in, who's gone out, and we'll also have a wee review of tomorrow's night game, Porto, and also, as I say, the big crucial one at Easter Road on Sunday. So please continue to follow, give us a like if you can. It helps us to spread the podcast far and wide. You can find us in all the usual places like Spotify and the Apple Podcast Store. So join us again next week and we will see you then. Thank you.